Welcome to Logic. My name's Tim McKenzie. I'll be your instructor. I like to provide a few videos throughout each module as well as at the beginning, kind of just to introduce yourself to me and the topic. And so, hi. As far as it goes, I just kind of want to run through some of the aspects of the course. One is that everything in the course is due at 11:59 p.m. on Mondays. Now, there is one exception. And that exception is that Martin Luther King holiday is this coming Monday. And so nothing will be due on that day. And so it'll be due actually Tuesday at 11:59 p.m. Now, there is a question on the first module quiz that asks, when is everything due? And the answer is Mondays 11:59 p.m. There is that one exception, but everything else is due at the same time. So that is the answer. So I've given you the answer. And if you miss it and you email me and say, well, I didn't get, then you obviously didn't watch the video, and so I'm not sympathetic. Anyway, but everything's due at 11:59 p.m. on Mondays. But I don't actually count it late until noon on Tuesday, or noon the next day. Because basically it's a grace period. Sort of like if you go to pay your rent, sometimes landlords will say, well, it's due on the 1st, but it's not late until the 6th or the 5th or something like that. And the same thing's here as well. Everything's due at 11:59 p.m., but you can have a little extra time. That way, if you're kind of running late or you had to work late, you don't have to worry about rushing to get it done. You can have a little bit extra time. Now, as you go through the modules, you'll notice I'm actually updating some of them. I need to do some review and stuff, and I'm going to update the modules, at least do a preliminary update here this week. But at least to get started, I have the first 2 modules open and ready to go. The next 8 modules, there are 10 modules altogether, the next 8 modules say for review only. Those need updated. They don't have dates changed, they don't have things fixed, maybe there's some missing information, maybe I want to change a couple quiz questions, that kind of thing. Those will be updated probably before the beginning of next week, before the end of this module. And so keep that in mind, and you might want to work on those. The other thing you want to look at is, during the first week, is you want to look over the syllabus, and you also want to look at the logical scavenger hunt. The logical scavenger hunt is going to be due during finals week. It's 200 points. And this is a pretty big project where it asks you to find examples of arguments, find examples of fallacies, find examples of all kinds of things that we're learning about in this course, and then show me examples of these. This is a very big project. It's something that will take many hours. And if you try to put it off to the last week, you will be very upset with yourself because you'll be trying to find it. But if you begin early and you spend maybe an hour or 2 every week looking for some examples, you probably will be done before the end of the semester, but you'll also have a much better project. And so look at that and begin thinking about that. Some of the stuff you won't know, some of the stuff you won't understand yet because we haven't learned it, but you at least can see what kind of things we're going to be looking for. If during the course you ever run into a problem, email me, talk to me. I am a very nice person. I can be very accommodating, very helpful, but my only requirement is I do lose my patience when people ask me 10 times for an extension or extra time. I wouldn't say I lose my patience. I just lose my willingness to be sympathetic to it. But if you have an issue, please just email me. The one thing I do ask is that, let me know as early as possible. Don't email me after a due date and say, oh, I completely forgot, or I had this going on. Tell me beforehand. Let me know that there may be some difficulty, and I will be more than happy to help you out. So don't be afraid to ask. I can be fairly helpful in that regard. Just as a general question, general issue, sometimes logic for a lot of people is a very difficult course. Some people find it very easy. Some people find it very difficult. I don't know that, for me, logic wasn't that difficult. I mean, obviously I'm teaching it, but for a lot of people it's difficult. And there's definitely aspects of any logic course that will be difficult. Maybe you find truth tables tough. Maybe you find inductive, identifying inductive arguments difficult, versus deductive. These are all things that will be potentially difficult. 2 things that are good about this is, if you are finding something difficult, you're likely not the only one struggling. So don't think you're alone. Now, I don't want you to think, oh, it's hard, so I just don't need to work, or I'm going to give up. I'm not suggesting that, because I don't want to set sort of this, oh, it's tough, I can't stand it, that kind of thing. But I do want you to be aware that at times it will get difficult, and it is not you alone who is having that feeling. Other people in the course will share that feeling, and so keep that in mind. The other thing is that part of this course, it's modular, but there are aspects of logic where, we use some of the information, some of the ideas, some of the terminology throughout the semester, but at times we kind of switch gears. And so if you're having difficulty in one section of the course, it doesn't mean you're going to have a difficult time the whole semester. So keep that in mind as the course does change. I know personally I find finding the difference between like deductive and inductive arguments or diagramming arguments and things like that, I find those more difficult perhaps than some of the later stuff. And a lot of people find those a lot easier than some of the later stuff. And so don't think just because you're having difficulty in one section that you're going to have that, because a lot of times it will switch gears and some of the stuff that will build upon what we learned, but they're not going to be essential. And so don't think that, don't let the course or a difficult section keep you from refocusing in the next one, because it will be a different game each module. The modules in this course do vary in length. Some of them are as little as 7 days, and some of them are as much as 2 or 3 weeks. Like I think spring break we have a 3-week one, but which is not really 3 weeks, but it gives you a little extra time. They do vary. There is an announcement on each of them how long you have. The 2-week ones don't mean it's the 2-week ones have a lot more information, or a lot more difficult than the 1-week ones. Some of the 1-week ones, they just aren't, there's not enough information in it to make it go 2 weeks. And so there's different links for each of these modules, and that's just simply because, like, the first module is a 1-week module, and that's because it's fairly straightforward. It's mainly about the syllabus and what is philosophy. But then as you go along, there'll be more difficult ones, and they will give you more time. And so keep that in mind. The due dates are all Mondays at 11:59 p.m., but whether you have 1 week or 2 weeks will differ. Don't let the fact you have 2 weeks, or even maybe 3 weeks with spring break time, take that as a chance to go, okay, I can wait till the last couple days. Logic can be very difficult. I always use the example, logic is like, it's new material. Oftentimes I think of it as like pouring water into a funnel. If you take water and you just go and you dump it in real quick, the funnel overflows, right? But if you pour it in slowly, the funnel never overflows and it puts the stuff into the container. And I think that's the way logic is. You kind of need to just do a little bit every day. 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 Set aside an hour. Set aside, whatever, maybe 2 hours every 2 days. Then that will probably be a good way to approach the course rather than trying to cram, going. Because I think a lot of times with online courses, people do nothing for 6 days and then they try to do everything on the 7th day. And that will not work with logic. That might work with some other courses. I'm sure it would work with like my ethics class perhaps. I don't know. But I don't think it works in a logic course. Now, people always ask me, they'll say, how do I succeed in an online course? And I always have 2 rules. The first one is ask questions. In a real world class, in a classroom class, you can just simply sit there and usually somebody else will ask the question if you have one. You can't rely upon that in an online course. I try to anticipate the questions. If I've had questions repeatedly in past semesters, I will go ahead and put something up early on to explain it, to revise my explanation. But sometimes there's stuff that's just wrong. Maybe a due date's wrong. Maybe something else is wrong. Don't be afraid to ask. If you see something that doesn't seem right or you're just having difficulty understanding, ask. That's what I'm here for. Sometimes people say, oh, I hate to bother you. I hate to do this. Well, you know what? This is my job. I get paid to do this. I'm fine with you emailing me. The only time I ever get annoyed with people asking me questions is if they ask me a simple question that they should have been able to answer fairly quickly. Like, when's this module due? Look at the syllabus, right? But but besides that, I'm fairly open. Now, if there's an inconsistency in the syllabus, definitely ask that. The other thing I say, the second thing I say is essential to success in an online course is set aside time to work on the course. The reality is an online course is kind of out of sight, out of mind. You know, we have a lot going on in our lives. We have jobs, we have kids, we have other classes, and an online course is an easy thing to overlook. If you, an online course is an easy thing to overlook. If you have, another class that has a paper due in an hour, you're probably not going to take the time to work on this class. Same thing's true with me as an instructor. If I have to be in front of an ethics class at 10 a.m., chances are I'm going to focus on what I have to do. I'm going to be there with students in front of them, having to say something to make sense. I probably am going to focus on that. So the only way to overcome that is to have a specific time where you work on this course. Be devoted to the fact that this is my time, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., 10 a.m. to noon on Tuesday is my time to work on this course. That is the way, you really need to have scheduled time to work on the course if you want to be successful. So my 2 rules are don't be afraid to ask questions and set aside specific time. Couple things. I mentioned, emailing me if you have any questions. If you ever see an error or you think something's wrong, email me. If I end up deciding, yeah, that was wrong, and there will be cases where I have dates wrong or a grammatical error or just something's unclear. If you do that and I find that error, I will give you an extra credit point. Sometimes if it's a really big error, I may give you a couple. And basically, I kind of give it a little bit of a scavenger hunt, like find errors, email them to me. It's a chance for me to improve the course because I see things that are wrong. But it's also, I think, it's also nice for you to know that, if you see things that are wrong, you should be pointing them out. Don't feel bad about it. Don't feel like, I should feel bad if you find errors, not the other way around. Last thing, I always like to kind of mention what are the aspects of each module. In every module, there will be a discussion board. The discussion board is kind of just a general question, a chance for you maybe to interact with your classmates. Nothing too complex on that. There's a thing called the lesson certification. This is an on your honor system where you say, did you do all the homework, true or false? And then you then say what you liked or disliked about the module. Give me a little bit of advice. I use that to say, okay, I need to add this or I need to take this away. I need to do these things. And so those are that's something that's there. If you don't do all the readings, if you don't do all the homework, say that. You will still get credit for that, but I won't give credit for the second part, which is the what do you like or not like, because really at the end of the day, if you didn't do all the homework, then, I'm not really sure that what you tell me was bad is legitimate. And then there is an exam. The exam is something that some cases will be timed, as I said, and that is your chance to show you did the work. It will be similar to the homework. It will be similar to a lot of what you do in the book. And so if you've done the homework and you've done all that, you should be able to take the exam, get it done on time, and everything should be good. Last things last, I always like to give a little bit of a shout out to a former professor here, Marty Morris. Marty died about 2.5 years ago, and when he got sick, I took over his courses kind of at the last minute. And Logic and World Religions are the two that he basically just gave me all of his material, and I just sort of took them over. Now, this one is one where some of the lessons are actually things Marty created. He spent a ton of time creating these logic lessons you have on there, and he spent a ton of time working on it, and he did a very good job. I try to make some improvements. Every semester I try to make it a little bit mine, but Marty really did a great job. When you see cartoons embedded in lessons, that is something Marty looked up. Marty was a very funny guy. Marty was a very interesting guy, very nice guy, and so I kind of a little bit of a shout out to say, thank you to him. Some of the aspects of this course, you may see his name, you may see the cartoons. That is all courtesy of Marty Morris, and so he deserves some thanks. And like I said, he died 2 years, almost 3 years ago now. So If you have any questions, email me. Otherwise, I hope you have a great semester.